What if I told you that every disagreement, every betrayal, every spark of love or flicker of pain you've experienced, none of it was truly about them. It was always about you. Not because you're the cause or at fault, but because life doesn't weigh who was right. It simply reflects what's within. You think someone walked away and hurt you in the process, but perhaps it wasn't about their cruelty. Maybe life was holding up a mirror, showing your fears, your suppressed anger, your craving for approval, your inner imbalance. You're not doomed in love. You're not cursed in connection. You're merely replaying an emotional narrative until you rewrite it yourself. In the realm of relationships, karma isn't a punishment, it's a silent mentor. And the lesson: you don't pull in what you desire, you pull in who you are. Before casting blame, pause. Before pointing at their failure, to love, to honor, or to stay, ask something deeper. What frequency did I bring into this bond? Because karma doesn't start with others. It begins inside your energy field. The greatest misbelief we carry is this: if they change, things will improve. But karma never moves from outside in. It operates from the core outward. It's not about adjusting others, it's about awakening within. When your heart is unsettled, it will unconsciously draw in others vibrating at that same level of disorder, not to punish you, but to highlight the pattern within. Your internal reality is the scriptwriter of your life, and the roles played by others are cast by your unresolved inner state. Every manipulative lover, every dismissive friend, every emotionally distant family member, they aren't just random events. They are reflections. They show where healing is still needed. Not because you're broken, but because your experiences serve as mirrors, not medicine. Let's be radically honest. Have you ever pleaded for someone to stay, even when they consistently showed you they couldn't meet your emotional needs? Have you ever let your values bend, your standards twist, just to avoid rocking the boat? That's not them overpowering you. That's your wounded self making the decisions. Because how you allow people to treat you is karma's way of displaying how you treat yourself. We think of karma as retribution, the idea that pain given will eventually be pain received. But karma doesn't deal in revenge. It whispers instead. What in you permitted this to happen? Why were your needs quieted? What part of your past made this pain feel familiar? Unless we explore those questions, we don't progress. We repeat. We leap into new faces, but carry the same unresolved emotional tale. Why? Because the real lesson hasn't been embraced, and karma is endlessly patient. It will keep placing the same test before you until your answers evolve. But here's the empowering shift. The moment you begin to prioritize your truth, your peace, your self-respect, everything changes. When you start saying no to mistreatment, yes to personal boundaries, no to manipulation, and yes to inner value, karma doesn't retaliate. It realigns. It brings in people who reflect growth, not pain. So if you truly want to transform your relationships, stop pleading for others to evolve. Start asking, what part of me drew this in? What belief about myself made me allow this into my life? Because once you heal the conflict inside, the outer world no longer needs to send you more battles. And when you finally commit to honoring yourself, the universe mirrors that commitment back to you through others. Karma in relationships doesn't begin with blame. It begins with awareness. Not because you're the source of your suffering, but because you carry the power to shape what unfolds next. That power is called self-respect. And it's the key to dissolving karmic loops for good. We spend so much energy analyzing others. Why they left, why they lied, why they betrayed. But rarely do we turn the lens inward and ask, what did I carry inside that allowed this to unfold? Karma doesn't begin with someone else's wrongdoing. It starts earlier, in the quiet places of your own beliefs, wounds, and sense of worth. You don't attract what you wish for. You attract what you subconsciously align with. If your inner self is cluttered with unresolved heartbreak, fear of being left, or a desperate need to be wanted, karma doesn't punish you. It reflects you through the very people who enter your space. Not to destroy, but to awaken. The one who ghosts you reflects your fear of abandonment. The one who controls or manipulates echoes how you've suppressed yourself just to feel safe. These are not coincidences. They are karmic assignments. Karma doesn't operate in blame, but in clarity. It gently, and sometimes painfully, asks, how are you showing up for yourself when no one is watching? Because life doesn't respond to your wishes, it responds to your frequency. The way you treat yourself in solitude becomes the blueprint for how others treat you in relationship. When you accept inconsistency, when you pursue love that demands your silence, when you trade your peace for approval, karma listens, not to scold, but to reveal. Every relationship is an echo of your vibration. That's why healing is not optional. It's your karmic reset. The moment you begin to honor your peace, to walk away from what disrupts your spirit even when it feels familiar, karma begins to realign, not to punish, but to reward. When you elevate your standard, the world can't help but meet it. You don't need vengeance. You need vision. You don't need someone else's apology. You need to forgive yourself for ignoring your own truth. Karma doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to your patterns. So if you find yourself caught in the same heartbreak, replayed through different people, ask not, why do they keep doing this to me? Ask instead, why do I keep allowing it? Because healing doesn't just soothe your pain. It alters your signal, raise your frequency, and karma will no longer bring in those who match your wounds, but those who reflect your growth. The power has never been in their hands. It's always been in yours, hidden beneath years of conditioning, approval seeking, and buried emotion. But the moment you reclaim that power, cycles dissolve and transformation begins. Relationships begin within. The one you hold with yourself sets the tone for every connection thereafter. You can block numbers, move cities, reinvent yourself externally, but you cannot escape your own energetic imprint. Karma doesn't follow you like a shadow. It meets you like a mirror. That's the truth of energy. You can change your wardrobe, your name, your story, but your inner frequency always broadcasts first. People often believe karma is about what we do to others, but that's just the surface. Karma listens to who we are when no one is watching. You might smile, speak kindly, and perform love well, but if your heart is burdened with fear, if your kindness hides desperation, if your warmth is rooted in control, karma doesn't miss the message. In relationships, energy introduces you long before your words. You don't draw in what appears ideal. You attract what feels familiar to your nervous system, the energy your body remembers, even if your mind resists. That's why two people may look perfect on paper, but feel like a storm. Their energies are repeating a war that began long before they met. You can't fake alignment. You can't disguise your vibration. The universe isn't moved by what you promise. It's moved by what you practice. So, if you continually find yourself in unbalanced dynamics, giving too much, receiving too little, exhausted by those who never pour back, you're not cursed. You're being shown something. Life is asking you to look at what you're unconsciously offering, because every time you ignore your needs to make someone stay, karma records that. Every time you silence your voice to preserve peace, karma notes it, not to shame you, but to awaken you. Energy speaks a language more precise than words, and karma is fluent. If your love is transactional, based on performance, fear, or pleasing, you'll call in people who treat it like a currency, not a gift. If you approach love fearing abandonment, you'll find people who validate that. Fear not out of cruelty, but resonance. Not because you deserve heartache, but because your energy broadcasts an invitation, and karma answers that call. The hopeful truth. Energy is not fate. It's not a sentence. It's a setting. One you can change. You can choose to release the old frequencies, the bitterness, the fear, the hunger for external proof of your worth. You can choose to lead with fullness, not emptiness, with presence, not performance. And when you do, the world responds. People who once drained you will fall away. Patterns that once felt inescapable will dissolve. The drama you once confused for passion will feel foreign, even childish. Because the truth is this: you don't attract what you long for. You attract what you embody. You don't manifest the relationship you imagine. You magnetize the one that mirrors your inner climate. So when your world feels off balance, don't look outward with blame. Look inward with curiosity. Ask, what wounds are still guiding my choices? What parts of me are still searching for what I have yet to offer myself? Because when you clear your energy, karma stops testing and starts aligning. Not to reward effort, but to reflect truth. You can escape people. You can leave places. But you cannot outrun the energy you carry. And until you tend to it, you will continue to meet it in different forms, different faces. Same lessons. Everything you do, everything you say, every act of presence or withdrawal is a seed, and the universe, it's soil that never forgets. Relationships aren't shaped by grand gestures. They are formed through consistent, unseen choices. The tone you use, the pauses you take, the way you listen, the way you respond. These are more than habits. They are karmic seeds. You cannot plant dishonesty and expect trust. You cannot nourish a connection with absence and expect it to flourish in loyalty. You cannot hide silence behind love and expect clarity to bloom. The law is simple. Every action, no matter how quiet, speaks, and karma hears with perfect clarity. This is not about fear. It's about power. Because once you become aware of the seeds you're planting, you stop blaming others for the weeds. Bitterness doesn't show up suddenly. It grows from neglected truth and unmet needs. Connection doesn't die from one blow. It erodes over time through unspoken pain, ignored feelings, and misplaced priorities. But the beauty, you can start again. You can uproot old patterns, clear the soil, and replant from truth. Because the future of your relationships doesn't depend on who wronged you. It depends on what you cultivate now. Plant honesty, plant compassion, plant the energy you wish to receive. Because the universe does not ignore silent gardens. It simply waits for the right season to reveal what has taken root. And when it does, don't be surprised by the harvest. You'll reap what you've lived. Not what you wished for, but what you chose. If you've ever found yourself whispering, "Why does this keep happening to me?" Pause. That question isn't weakness. It's the door karma has patiently been waiting for you to open. Because repetition is not life punishing you. It's life teaching you, with precise, unflinching accuracy. Karma isn't fueled by chaos. It operates through curriculum. And until the lesson is truly seen, the test will return. The faces may change, the names may differ, but the emotional pattern that stays the same. Different partner, same hurt, different friend, same competition, different setting, same emotional spiral. Why? Because karma isn't interested in appearances. It's interested in awareness. It knows when you're numbing, distracting, or blaming. It sees when you're running from the wound instead of healing it. So it returns the pattern, not to punish, but to awaken. It's not about fault, it's about focus. You are the constant in every repeated relationship, not because you're the problem, but because you are the key. That's why the story feels familiar, because it is. The script hasn't changed, only the actors. And the moment you stop expecting the world to change the plot, and instead rewrite your role in it, everything shifts. You're not cursed. You're being called. Called to evolve. Called to notice the loop. And this time, choose something different. Maybe the relationships you attract start with charm but end with control. Maybe friendships feel uplifting in public, but competitive in private. Or perhaps, no matter the situation, you find yourself overextending, giving too much, receiving too little, and ending up drained. The lesson isn't in what they did, it's in what you allowed, excused, justified, or ignored. Repetition is karma's most loving form of confrontation. It won't let you stay asleep. It will keep placing the same scenario in your path until you face the part of yourself that's still wounded, still searching, still acting from lack instead of love. That's why you attract from where you haven't healed. If you fear being alone, life may keep sending you people who make you feel isolated, not to hurt you, but to encourage self-reliance. If you crave validation, karma may bring those who withhold it, not to belittle, but to direct you inward. And once you dare to ask, what is this cycle revealing to me? You shift from victim to student, from reactive to reflective. That's when karma gets quiet. That's when the loop begins to dissolve. Because the test is never about them. It's about whether you will finally choose yourself. Will you walk away from what diminishes you? Will you speak your truth, even if it shakes the ground beneath you? Will you believe that peace is your birthright, not a prize you must suffer to earn? Karma doesn't punish the heart, it strengthens the soul. And soul growth doesn't happen in comfort. It unfolds through challenge, through resistance, through facing what you've been avoiding. So if the patterns persist, if the faces change but the pain remains, don't take it as a curse, see it as your preparation. Karma is building your readiness. Readiness to choose boundaries over betrayal, truth over tolerance, worth over want. Because the cycle continues only when you forget your power, and the moment you remember, the pattern ends. Suddenly, the people who once had power over you no longer hold emotional weight. The situations that once triggered you lose their grip because you've grown beyond them. The loop lives in your forgetting. The freedom lives in your remembering, and your power. It's not about control. It's about clarity. Love is often mistaken for a mask, a pleasant performance, a dance of perfection where we hide our flaws and present only the pieces we think others will accept. But true love, karmic love, is the opposite. It's not a mask, it's a mirror, one that reflects your shadows just as clearly as your light. We search for love hoping it will accept us. But real love does more than accept, it reveals. It shows us the very parts of ourselves we've denied, suppressed, or hidden. When love feels difficult, it's not always because it's wrong. Sometimes it's because it's honest. It's showing us wounds we haven't yet healed, defenses we've built, or fears we've never faced. This mirror can be painful, unforgiving, terrifying, but it's also transformational. Relationships don't collapse because love was absent. They crumble because we wore masks instead of facing the mirror. We tried to hide the parts of us that were meant to grow. But when you bring honesty into a relationship, radical self-honesty, you stop blaming the other person for your pain. You start asking, what is this reflecting back to me? What part of me is still holding on to hurt? What fear is this stirring? The mirror doesn't sugarcoat. It doesn't flatter. It reflects. It shows you where you need to speak more clearly, love more deeply, forgive more fully, including yourself. Masks breed illusion, and illusions birth cycles, confusion, repetition, disconnect. But mirrors offer truth, and truth creates transformation. When you drop the mask and embrace the reflection, love stops being a test and becomes a teacher. The love you long for will not arrive from someone else, perfectly formed. It must begin with you, in you, for you. So when love challenges you, don't run. Don't hide behind control, perfection, or silence. Look, lean in, listen, because what's being reflected is not your weakness. It's your invitation to step into your highest self, to meet your potential with courage. Karma rewards those brave enough to see themselves fully, even when the mirror stings. Because that's where growth begins. That's where old patterns finally release. Not when you find the perfect partner, but but when you become the truest version of yourself. In every relationship, there comes a moment, subtle or loud, when you begin to feel the imbalance. When your endless giving doesn't return to you. When your presence becomes expected, not appreciated. When your efforts go unnoticed, and your heart starts to feel heavy. This moment is not punishment. It is karma calling you back to yourself. It's the turning point where your soul whispers, enough, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Not to shut people out, but to finally let yourself in, because being available all the time, emotionally, physically, spiritually, especially when it drains you, doesn't prove your love. It proves your disconnection from your own worth. Your energy is currency, and the way you spend it teaches the universe how to respond. Karma listens, always, if you give without balance. If you show up for others while abandoning yourself, you unintentionally teach karma that your needs are optional, your boundaries flexible, and your worth negotiable. And karma echoes that belief. It brings people who take but don't return, who lean but don't support, who expect but never invest. But when you start honoring your time, when you say no without guilt, when you pause before offering more than you can hold, karma shifts because your signal has changed. You begin attracting relationships built on mutual respect, not silent sacrifice, on reciprocal care, not energetic imbalance. Your availability sets the tone for the love you receive. It determines who stays, who steps up, and who steps out. So ask yourself, are you showing up from fear or from intention? Are you saying yes to avoid being left, or because it aligns with your truth? Because the difference between the two is the difference between depletion and empowerment. Many feel exhausted in love, not because love is draining, but because their version of love requires self-abandonment. They confuse obligation with affection, availability with loyalty, silence with harmony. And in doing so, they create karmic patterns of unfulfilling relationships. But here's the shift. When you stop being available out of fear and start becoming intentional with your energy, everything around you transforms. People begin to respect your time because you respect it first. They show up more fully because you no longer accept half efforts. Karma is a mirror, not a judge. It reflects the boundaries you set or fail to set. It reflects your self-respect, your emotional clarity, your willingness to stand firm in who you are. Boundaries aren't about building walls. They're about building respect. They're not weapons. They're invitations for the right people to rise and meet you where you stand. When you fail to set boundaries, you silently agree to mistreatment. You send a message that your limits are flexible, your values negotiable, and your peace expendable. And so karma, being the perfect mirror, brings you those who cross lines, not to harm you, but to show you where you have left your gate wide open. But when you clearly express your boundaries, when you say, "This is my line," not with anger, but with certainty, karma listens and reflects that back through people who honor your space, your energy, and your soul. Boundaries teach others how to treat you. But more than that, they teach you how deeply you respect yourself. They stop the slow erosion of your dignity. They prevent resentment from festering beneath the surface. They create the conditions for love to be safe, not sacrificial. It's not easy, especially if you've spent years shrinking to make others feel comfortable. But the peace that follows, clear boundaries, is profound. And the relationships that remain, those are the ones that were always meant to. Karma doesn't ignore your efforts. It watches how you choose, especially when choosing yourself feels unfamiliar. What you tolerate, you normalize. And what you normalize, karma mirrors back. If you accept betrayal, karma will bring more of it, until you finally say, no more. If you allow dishonesty, you teach the universe that truth is optional, until you demand integrity. The moment you draw a firm line, not in anger, but in self-honoring, karma responds. The cycle breaks, and your reality begins to reflect the respect you've begun to give yourself. So be bold with your standards. Be clear in your expectations. Be unafraid to lose people who can't meet your level of respect, because in love and in karma, your boundaries don't push people away. They protect the sacredness of who you are. They guard the garden of your soul. They decide who enters, who stays, and who must turn away. And the universe honors that boldness. It aligns you with people who bring peace instead of chaos, presence instead of excuses, devotion instead of drama. Your boundaries don't make you difficult. They make you discerning. They don't isolate you. They refine the kind of connection you attract. When you honor your limits, you no longer need to explain or justify your worth. You live it, and karma reflects it. So if you feel overlooked, ask, where have I overlooked myself? If you feel repeatedly disrespected, ask, where have I failed to enforce my truth? These answers hold the key to your liberation, because boundaries aren't blocks. They are bridges. Bridges to higher love, to true respect, to relationships that feel like alignment instead of effort. When you become fluent in the language of boundaries, you no longer chase clarity, you embody it. You no longer beg for peace, you create it. And karma, it responds not to the noise, but to the message beneath. The message that says, I remember who I am, I remember what I deserve. And that remembrance, it changes everything. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood forces in the spiritual path, especially in relationships. Many think it means excusing harm, forgetting the wound, or pretending pain never happened. But true forgiveness is none of these things. True forgiveness is liberation. It's the key that unlocks the karmic loops we unknowingly stay trapped in. Karma teaches through experience, yes, but it also opens the door to freedom, and that door swings wide the moment we forgive. Refusing to forgive doesn't protect you. It keeps you tethered, like dragging a weight made of bitterness. It holds your heart hostage to a past that no longer serves your growth. When you hold on to anger, you keep the wound alive. When you replay the betrayal, you energize the story. And karma, being the master of reflection, responds not to what happened, but to what you keep feeding. Forgiveness doesn't say, what you did was okay. It says, I no longer carry the emotional cost of this pain. It isn't weakness, it is power, the kind of power that reclaims your peace and ends the cycle. In relationships, forgiveness isn't just about the other person, it's also about you. You who stayed too long. You who silenced your voice. You who knew better but couldn't walk away. You who needs compassion to. Karma doesn't rush this process. It waits patiently until you are willing to let go, not just of the person, but of the story, of the resentment, of the identity rooted in being hurt. Because when you forgive, you stop identifying as the victim of your past. You become the architect of your future. You tell karma, I'm ready to stop learning through suffering and start growing through awareness. Forgiveness isn't forgetting the lesson, it's remembering it without the emotional poison. It clears your inner space so new experiences can enter, experiences aligned with your healing, not your hurt. This is why forgiveness is one of karma's greatest accelerators. When you release the weight of the past, you step into your present with clarity, openness, and strength. You're not weak for choosing to forgive. You're wise. You don't have to allow the same people back into your life, but you must release the energetic bond they hold over your heart. Because until you do, karma will continue to send you new versions of the same lesson. Forgiveness doesn't mean dropping your boundaries. It means strengthening them from a place of peace, not pain. It means no longer needing someone else to make it right, because you've made yourself whole. And karma recognizes that. It responds to the healed heart with new reflections, new people, new patterns, new peace. This is the transformation. This is how cycles end, not with revenge, but with release. There also comes a profound moment in every journey, a reckoning. where you realize that your constant availability has not earned you peace, that being everything to everyone has only left you with little left for yourself. This is where karma begins a new chapter, because the way you offer your energy, how, when, and to whom, is not just a logistical decision, it's a spiritual signal. When you make yourself constantly available without discretion, especially when it comes at the cost of your emotional health, you teach karma something important, that your energy is not sacred, that your boundaries are fluid, that your worth is up for negotiation, and karma listens to that message, not with punishment, but with reflection. You attract people who take without giving, who rely on your presence but never reciprocate your support, who come to expect your energy but never consider your need for restoration. But when you choose differently, when you become mindful of your availability, when you say no, not from coldness but from clarity, karma shifts. You tell the universe, my time matters, my peace is sacred, my energy is not an open resource, it is a conscious offering. And karma begins to send people who understand that. People who appreciate your presence, who meet you halfway, who value you not for what you give endlessly, but for who you are authentically. Your availability creates your energetic reality. It signals what you believe about your worth, what kind of love you accept, and what you expect in return. If you are always available out of fear of being forgotten, fear of being unloved, fear of being left behind, you create patterns where your presence is used but not cherished. But when you shift into availability grounded in self-respect, when you pause before saying yes, when you ask yourself, does this serve my spirit? Everything changes. The people who once took you for granted fade away. The ones who truly resonate with your energy arrive. This is the karmic refinement, not a punishment, but a purification. A sorting dot. It's not always easy. Choosing yourself might feel like loss at first. You might face guilt, resistance, even loneliness. But this discomfort is the price of transformation. Karma honors those who finally say, I will no longer betray myself to be accepted by others. And in return, it brings in people who love you without condition, who walk beside you without demand, and who cherish you not for your availability, but for your authenticity. This shift doesn't just change your relationships. It deepens the one you have with yourself, because when you protect your energy, you tell yourself that you matter. You tell your inner child, I see you now, and I will not abandon you again. Karma reflects that, and your external world begins to match the inner truth you now live. There comes a point in the journey when your soul refuses to tolerate what it once accepted, a sacred point where exhaustion becomes awakening, where your tired heart, your overextended spirit, and your neglected truth rise up and say no more. That's the moment karma listens most closely, because that moment is a declaration, not against others, but in favor of yourself. When you stop being perpetually available to what drains you, disrespects you, or distorts your worth, karma doesn't respond with isolation. It responds with alignment. This isn't about shutting people out. It's about letting your energy become sacred again. Choosing how, when, and with whom you share your life force. Because when you constantly fill gaps, soothe wounds, or overcompensate to maintain peace, you teach life that your well-being is optional, and life will respond accordingly until you shift the signal. The moment you withdraw that over-availability, a powerful silence emerges, one that speaks louder than words, one that says, my presence is no longer promised, it must be earned. And in that space, karma clears the path. It removes what's misaligned. It reveals what's been one-sided. It dissolves relationships that depended on your self-betrayal to survive. What remains is truth. What enters is balance. It's not easy. Sometimes this shift brings guilt. Sometimes solitude. But this is not abandonment. It's alignment. and karma always honors alignment. You'll find yourself attracting new connections, not because you chased them, but because you stopped chasing everything that pulled you away from yourself. This new reality, it mirrors your inner clarity, your restored self, your returned energy, and in this space, your relationship with yourself deepens. You stop confusing availability with love. You stop measuring your value by how much you give. You begin to live from intention, not obligation, from wholeness, not hunger. Every interaction becomes a conscious choice, not a desperate habit, and karma responds not with applause, but with transformation. Suddenly, relationships become reciprocal. Conversations deepen. Your presence is no longer assumed, it is honored, because you honored it first. This shift becomes the quiet revolution of your life. The day you stopped showing up for everything and started showing up for yourself, it is here that your freedom begins. You no longer chase connection. You magnetize it. You no longer tolerate disrespect. You deflect it. You no longer seek love to feel whole. You bring wholeness into love and karma. It keeps score, not with punishment, but with perfect reflection. The relationships that remain are real. The ones that fall away never were, and the space they leave behind becomes fertile ground for your peace, your power, and your purpose to bloom. As this chapter closes, remember this: every relationship, every interaction is a reflection of what you hold inside. Karma doesn't punish or praise, it mirrors. If you bring anxiety, it will show you people who provoke it. If you carry unresolved pain, it will reflect that pain in familiar scenarios. Not to break you, but to awaken you. You are not being targeted. You are being taught. And the teacher karma is patient. It won't move forward until you do. You can't change the people who hurt you. You can't rewrite their choices. But you can decide fully, completely, that their choices no longer define yours. You can choose boundaries. You can choose silence. You can choose peace. And when you do, karma shifts. The storm calms. The cycle ends. Because karma doesn't move through time. It moves through energy. And the moment your energy shifts, so does your life. You may wonder, can it really be that simple? Yes, not easy, but simple. Because the most powerful truth is this: every relationship is a mirror. Every moment, a message. Every repeated pain, a path, not toward blame, but toward awareness. And once you see clearly, you cannot unsee. Once you choose yourself, you cannot forget that choice. Once you remember your worth, life stops reflecting your wounds and starts reflecting your wholeness. That's how karma works. It is not a shadow following your mistakes. It is a mirror held up to your essence. And when you bring love to that essence, when you honor it, protect it, and speak from it, the universe responds in kind. So if you've ever felt like your kindness was overlooked, your loyalty unnoticed, your patience unreciprocated, trust this: karma does not deal in immediacy. It deals in roots. Some seeds take time, some bloom in silence, some rise only after seasons of darkness, but all are seen. The love you gave in silence, the truth you lived behind closed doors, the boundaries you set with shaking hands, none of it goes unseen. The life you live becomes the garden you grow. And if you're wondering why some relationships feel stagnant, ask not what others are doing. Ask, what have I been planting? Because every avoided conversation, every withheld truth, every unspoken need, those are seeds. Just as every clear boundary, every kind word, every self-honoring choice, those are seeds to. Karma doesn't judge. It grows both. But you can always choose again. Always start anew. Tend to the soil of your soul. Pull up what no longer serves. Begin again, not for them, but for you. Because the future of your relationships isn't determined by who hurt you or who stayed. It's shaped by who you become. So plant presence, plant truth, plant boundaries that protect your spirit, plant the kind of energy you wish to see mirrored in those who stand beside you. Because karma doesn't chase, it reflects, and when the reflection becomes beautiful, when it brings peace, respect, and deep connection, it won't be because you changed others, it will be because you finally remembered who you are and lived like it.